Okay, welcome to the Kingston Police Services Board Meeting number 23-07, being held on Thursday, May 18th, 2023. I'm gonna introduce Greg Sands, who's gonna do a short presentation for us on Court Services Unit.
Yes,
Greg,
thank you. Yes, I'm ready to go here if you're ready.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, I have Sergeant Laguerre here with me as well. She's one of the sergeants in our unit right now, and she's the one that put the slideshow together for us. So I felt it only fair that she should be here with this today. So, oh, it's not moving already. We're having issues. Try this one. Oh, we're having issues already. Here comes TJ on the run. Oh, there it goes. Now it's working. All right, sorry about that. So the team in the court office consists of a staff sergeant, 2 sergeants, the 5 sworn constables, 10 full-time special constables, 6 part-timers, and of course our civilian staff, support staff. Right now, Staff Sergeant Dempster is the manager of the unit, overseeing the entire unit, both sworn and civilians. He liaises with senior command, which is me most of the time. And we are very fortunate that we have a very good relationship with our Crown attorneys and judiciary. And Staff Sergeant Dempster is partially to thank for that, as well as Sergeant Laguerre and Sergeant Bethune. Sergeant Bethune is in early and gets the brief prep done for our folks. And Sergeant Laguerre is responsible for our special constables and our court security. Right now, we have 3 armed sworn officers for the courthouses that we look at. We have 4 courthouses that we have to provide security to. We also have a bail safety and domestic violence coordinator that falls under this unit, as well as our reader unit. That's our quality control for our internal record system. That's also part of this unit as well. Our full and part-time special constables are responsible for our prisoner security. Obviously, a lot of out-of-town transports for outstanding warrants. They do our DNA collection. They manage our youth court subpoenas. They assist patrol. They're able to do some traffic details and crime scene securities for us. They do most of our fingerprinting and photographing. They're able to assist at the hospitals with mental health issues. So we've got them utilized for a number of things, and they're a great resource to go to. And again, it's all hands on deck for things such as Queen's Homecoming or St. Patrick's Day. Our civilian support staff, they review all our criminal briefs and provincial offenses. They do the data entry and the scanning, and they ensure that the disclosure makes it to the Crown Attorney's office on time. One thing I'd like to mention is that every single thing that comes into that court office is time sensitive, so everything has almost everything's urgent or has a rush on it. So it's everything's time sensitive that comes through that office, and it's a very busy office, but they get it done on a daily basis. There's we sit on the Kingston Security Committee. It's made up of 17 members. It includes our judiciary, the Crowns, the Ministry of Attorney General, and they meet twice a year to ensure that our security is adequate. I'm sure you're familiar with the current Police Services Act, with our responsibilities to any court buildings within our jurisdiction. And again, it sets out the 4 areas where we're supposed to be, what we do, and that's what we do, and that's what Sergeant Laguerre is one of her areas to ensure this. We have our general orders that govern us as well internally. We have the 4 locations that we are responsible for the security at, and you can see by the addresses there. And Sergeant Laguerre was good enough to put some visuals in there as well. OCJ is probably the busiest spot. The Ontario Court of Justice, that is our busiest location, and that's the family court as well. It's we're more or less just security for family court. I asked for some statistics, so this is something that Sergeant Laguerre was able to gather for us. The 2023 arrest to date, that is actually up to date till about 15 minutes ago. So I would say that we're probably going to surpass probably 2022 numbers, given that we're already halfway there now. And I would say that our criminal charges to date are going to roughly be the same, if maybe not a little bit more, for 2022. But this is this just gives you an idea of the volume that comes through our court services branch. It's a lot. There's a lot that comes through there. So far our traffic charges to date, we're at 888, and our Liquor License Act charges to date, we're already at 441. So I'm certain we're going to surpass 2022. And I think there's a legitimate reason why they're a little bit higher this year with the high enforcement teams that were active at the last St. Patrick's Day event. This is our total prisoner transports for 2022. Our specials transport prisoners every single day, weekends included. A lot of virtual court appearances still, which is a kind of leftover from the pandemic days where things were mostly done by video, but we're getting back to less virtual, more in person. But I believe our bail hearings are still virtual. No, okay, they're back to in person again. So that just gives you some of the numbers that we have, and that concludes the slideshow. And I will make sure that Lori gets a copy of this slideshow if anybody's interested in keeping some of these numbers.
Okay, thank you for that. Does anyone on the board have any questions for Greg? No? Oh, Gail, please.
Sorry, just a quick question about virtual versus in person. It seems to me that potentially it's more costly to do in-person court appearances versus the virtual. Is there a reason why we are transitioning back towards that and bringing people in? And
I believe it was at the request of the courts.
thank you.
Christian?
Yeah, we don't need to do this now, but it would be for data. It's always helpful to have a bit of a historical trend to understand, and also, I mean, the city keeps growing demographically. So whether this is just sort of a function of growing demographics, or whether there's sort of trends here, as you point out, sort of with the liquor licensing, to see sort of whether there's sort of explanations, just so we can. It's hard for me otherwise to figure out, like, you know, are these trends that should be that the board should be paying attention to, or these trends that have a perfectly normal explanation, as you point out, sort of with liquor license offenses kind of thing. So just so the data is interesting, but if we had the context in demographic terms and a bit of a historical sort of longitudinal trajectory, that might help us better sort of ascertain any particular issues that we should be paying attention to versus stuff that sort of looks fairly routine.
No, I absolutely agree, and we can go back and that's a very good point. We can go back and look at some more of the dates and data. As you know, the charges, it's going to vary. I mean, was it last year we had 6 homicides, so there's going to be factors outside our control, but definitely the increase in population, these numbers are going to go up. They're going to steadily go up. But I can provide those numbers. We can go back and gather that information anytime.
And you don't need to do it now. Like, I think for the next time you present or so with the data or something like that, just kind of for context, that's helpful. So you can flag for us any issues where you say this is something the board needs to pay attention to, or the community needs to pay attention to, or, you know, do any of these figures sort of reflect, for instance, like what's been termed the catch and release problem with the current sort of bail changes to bail or so. You know, is there any evidence that this is actually an issue in Kingston? Is there evidence that it's actually not an issue? You know, is there anything that we can learn from these data that can help contribute to more informed debate on some of the current sort of public safety controversies, for instance?
Yes, no, I agree. And I don't think there's any jurisdiction that hasn't been affected by the bail reform. I would have had a couple examples easily, for sure. But yeah, I can get that for you. That's no problem.
Is there, and you might not have an answer for us, and you might want to come back with an answer on this, but the debate on bail reform, is it possible to generate any specific Kingston data that might show whether not or how Kingston in particular has or has not been affected by some of the changes that have been made and being able to disentangle that sort of from other potential drivers of, I can just leave that as a rhetorical question, for instance, if you don't have an immediate answer, and we could maybe take that up at a future board meeting. But just, I think there's a lot of ideology on both sides, and it'd be interesting to see if we can actually get some Kingston data sort of behind this on what is or is not the case and how this applies to Kingston, if at all.
No, right. As it was coming to the forefront, I know that there was an example that I found that I provided to the chief of police, and I believe he provided through the OACP, so it was involved in part of this debate as well. So we can have those examples.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
All right, next, do we have a disclosure of a conflict of interest? Okay, then I'll need to have a motion for the agenda to be approved. Gail, Christian, good, all in favor? Thank you. And then for the adoption of the minutes,
Anybody can see me there? I'm here.
I see you, Jimmy.
Okay, thank
Looking good, Jimmy.
you. Thank you.
Okay, so that the minutes of the meeting 2306 held on April 20th, 2023 be adopted. Thank you, Christian. Very good, Brian. All in favor? Then if we could have a motion to accept the following communications from the Ministry of the Solicitor General, Ontario Association of Police Services Boards, Canadian Association of Police Governance, and the Canadian Association of Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement be received. Is there any questions of any of the communications? Very good.
Could I have a mover and seconder, please, Mr. Chair?
Brian and Jimmy, all in favor? Thank you. And then there are no delegations, information reports. I'm gonna ask for call for a motion to accept the following reports be received for information purposes. Thank you, Gail, Jimmy, all in favor, good. And then Greg, are you going to talk about these reports? No? Then I'll accept them, but we're not going to talk about them until the acting chief is in our presence. Very good. Motions, deferred motion. Okay, so this is going back. I'm happy that the mayor is here. This is a deferred motion, a request to remove background check fee for volunteers of nonprofit agencies. So now that we're all here, we can do a vote on that. Does anyone want to comment on this before we have a vote? Yeah, Brian, sorry.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I apologize that I wasn't here when this motion first came up. I'm just curious to know, was there any information from staff in terms of what the budgetary impact for something like that would be?
Yeah, there was. Report had an estimated annual difference of about $250,000, about $250,000. That would be affected of the board's police budget, and then the other concern would have been how it's set up and kept track of, and who would do those kinds of things, and to make sure that it wasn't abused. So I was a little concerned with it. This, and quite honestly, this being a new board, I'm pretty sure we voted on this about 4 years ago. The same request with different board members, and at that time it was rejected for the same reasons. Christian, do you have a?
I'm happy to defer to his worship because he had his hand up before.
Okay.
Thanks, Christian. And yeah, I just a couple of comments, I guess, to follow up. So first of all, thank you to Jimmy for bringing it forward for the discussion, because I mean, I think that I totally get the intent here. It's definitely to try to make sure we're removing barriers to having people volunteer, and volunteerism is super important for the community and something that, quite honestly, we need to be able to find ways to encourage and make sure those barriers aren't there. I guess I just have a couple of concerns. Number one, I'm sure we all agree it's very important that that the police budget come in on balanced this year, and so I think that, you know, a hit like that, I think would be difficult perhaps to absorb. What I'm wondering is there might be some potential ideas or solutions that I could look into on the city side of things, particularly maybe even means tested. So, I mean, there might be some people for whom, you know, the fee for a police check is not an issue for volunteering, and there are others that it would be an issue. So there might actually be some mechanisms on the city side where we could actually differentiate between those two, and maybe there's something that we could do in the city and to create, you know, some assistance. So if someone wants to volunteer and that fee is a barrier, that there might be a way or a mechanism that we can manage that without necessarily creating a blanket exemption. So I think the idea is good. I just think it could use some additional refinement. So I would be happy if the board wants to just vote against and give me that direction to investigate on the city side, I can do that. Or if the board wants to defer this motion and give me some time, and I could always report back and just investigate potential solutions.
Thank you, Your Worship. Christian.
Yeah, so since the amounts of money by each individual are relatively small, I'm wondering whether there's a more efficient way to get to go on this, that we reject the motion, but we build in a provision that people on an individual basis can apply for an exemption, and that we delegate that the chief or acting chief be given the power to basically delegate assessing those exemptions on to any one member of the staff that he feels is appropriately placed, and that individual can, on a case-by-case basis, opt to waive the fee, and that there might be sort of standard things. So if you're an OW, for instance, you know, you just bring in your certification that you're on OW, and, you know, some things might be automatic waivers, others might be, you know, make your case, and you know, whether we can just delegate that, because in some ways, my concern is that this motion might effectively subsidize a significant amount of people who can actually pay for the service, so that the benefit will accrue disproportionately to those who where we want to engage in a cost recovery, and I'd rather just focus on those people where the cost recovery presents a genuine obstacle to their participation in civic life.
Thank you. Gail.
I just wanted to say that I agree. I think we're coming in all on the same line here, that that we do believe that we want to have as much opportunity for inclusion as possible in the community. But the fact that the mayor has indicated that they would be quite willing to take on not just the some of the cost for supporting those individuals, but also the administrative side of the house on that. I would be in favor of actually defeating the motion today without adding any context around it other than what we have already in our recorded meeting, and have the mayor report back. And then, Jimmy, if you're fine with it, then if there's nuance or anything that we want to go from there in regard to the board's responsibility, I'd be more than happy to revisit it in a revised form. Just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Gail. Jimmy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for you. I'm agreeing with the mayor. Probably we can look into that. This request or the idea came from some of the nonprofit organizations. So I think might be I was failed to explain how I should present my motion. I was thinking to just only the people who cannot pay the fee, they're living with some kind of condition economically and stuff like that, and all the, let's say if I cannot pay the fee but I want to work for Martha's Table, so Martha's Table if gives some kind of recommendation, so this person need to be background checked on our behalf because he wants to volunteer with us and he is unable to afford that fee, and kindly grant him, you know, the permission to with the free fee. So that was the one idea, but not for everyone or all the volunteer. I never tend to say that every volunteer who want to work and also can afford $5, $6 or $10, that's not a huge deal. It was particularly for those who cannot afford, having economical challenge. They are laid off, or living in the condition like they are living some in the shelters, and especially those people, but they have enough time and they want to serve their community on their own. For those people particularly. So maybe I was failed to explain that. We can look into that, and also I'm agree with the mayor that we can defer the motion and look into further with the details. There's no rush in there, and we can come with the idea, or if mayor is agreed, then we can give the same idea to our city council, and I can take the motion over there. And if that way, but I am not asking to all the volunteers who want to volunteers, whether even city will manage this one, but not for all the volunteers. Only the people who cannot afford to pay, but they have a time, they want to give their time to the organization. Am I clear?
Okay. Thank you, Jimmy, for explaining that. Your worship.
Thank you for the comments, and appreciate the discussion. I think what I would propose then, as Gail, as you've suggested, if we voted down this motion, and then I will commit to come back with information. The only thing that I was going to suggest is that I'll do some investigation to city side, and then come back with either an option or options for the board to consider. It may still require a bit of partnership between, maybe the city can do this and police services can do something, but we'll make sure that in terms of workload and cost that it's manageable. I just need to understand better what would be the most efficient system, and I'm happy to bring that information back to the board.
Very good. Thank you. And Christian.
One final comment then there, Brian, maybe there's a way of also streamlining this, because it probably doesn't make a lot of sense for people to go to the police station to do this. Can we kind of create a one-stop shop sort of for people who already look after they might already have visibility that the police doesn't have, kind of to make a better judgment on who should and shouldn't sort of qualify, because we need some principled approach, and it might actually make sense to use this as a more efficient way, one-stop shopping downtown at City Hall, and we just send it up to the police station once a week or something.
That's exactly what I'm thinking, Kristen. I don't think we need to duplicate anything. There might very well be some opportunities to streamline and use systems we already have, but I just need to understand that better, and and then I'll report back with more info.
All right.
So
cool.
can we do the defer the motion instead of defeating the motion? To just for the further investigation and further idea?
So I think we tabled the motion last time, so we have to vote on the motion this time. Is that correct? If we tabled it?
Yes, it's been deferred twice now till all board members were present, so we could vote on the motion.
Okay. I think, Jimmy, the understanding is that we're not.
It's okay.
We'll come back to
Okay.
this. Brian will bring it back, and then.
But I see Councillor Hassan's point. I don't think he wants to see the motion defeated, so maybe we can give an opportunity for the mayor to report back, or so. I'm happy to take sort of.
Laurie?
I appreciate that the councillor might not want to have the motion defeated by the board.
I will put in the minutes for the minutes of the meeting that Mayor Patterson will be bringing this back to the board.
I think the Councillor Hassan could also withdraw the motion, I believe, if he chose to do
Yes.
so.
Correct.
Okay, I will draw the motion then.
Brian, did they take the words out of your mouth? Is that what you're going to say?
You guys are procedural whizzes. You don't need my help on this stuff. But yeah, no, I think actually withdrawal was a cleaner approach, just because as Jimmy, you were suggesting that your approach was actually more refined about just wanting to target those that couldn't pay. And so we'd have to do a lot of work on the existing motion. So I think withdrawing it is cleaner, and then we can always bring something back that's new, and then we're not, don't have our hands tied.
Sure.
Very good. Jimmy, you're okay with that?
Yeah,
You good? Very good.
I'm willing to draw back.
Okay. Laura, you're good with, I can move on? Good. Okay. Then we're going to talk about the funding agreements with the Ontario strategy to end human trafficking. I'm going to ask for the motion that the Kingston Police Services Board enter into a funding agreement with Ontario strategy to end human trafficking between His Majesty the King and Right of Ontario, as represented by the Solicitor General operating as the Ontario Provincial Police and the Board, effective April 1st, 2023. And the board authorizes the chair or his delegate to execute funding agreement on behalf of the board. We have a first and a seconder. Very good, Brian, Christian, thank you. All in favor? Good.
Aye.
Then let's talk about new business. If we could just, we're going to take a moment of silence. Today is the funeral for Sergeant Eric Mueller, who died as a result of the shooting in Bourget, Ontario on May 11, 2023. We'll have that now. Okay. And I'm going to ask if there's any new business from any of the board members. Okay, in that case, I'll ask to move in camera. May I have a first or a seconder?
Excuse me, Jared.
Yes,
We're not gonna move in camera till 1:25
yeah, that's correct.
until the chief can return.
Okay. So first or seconder? Good, thank you, Jimmy, Gail. We'll see everyone at 1:25. Thank you.